Welcome to another edition of On Report, where today we're based at Wigan's training ground. Pre-season is now over and we're well into the season, and so we're here to talk about just how the players prepare for a busy few months ahead of them. Mark Bitcon is here from Wigan Warriors, the Director of Performance, and also with us is Chris Barron, Head of Strength and Conditioning at Warrington as well. Two best people to talk about this as we enter in a new season. The sportsmen, the rugby league players, the professional rugby league players are kind of regarded as some of the toughest, strongest athletes out there, not just from fans but also from other sports people as well. How do you get a player, this is quite a wide open question, how do you get a player prepared for a season? I'll ask you, Mark, first.
Well, it's been a little bit different this year because we've had a World Cup, so some of our guys have only had 3 or 4 weeks, which has been a bit challenging. Getting to a grand final, Chris probably testament to that as well. We get a bit less time anyway because we'd only finished sort of second week or first week in October. So a lot of the guys have been at it about 8 weeks, some of the others 4 weeks. So like I say, a bit more of a challenge this year. Bodies are tired, so a long season last year going all the way to a grand final, straight into international competition in the World Cup, different nations. So there's a lot of work to fit in, probably about 12 weeks worth. For some guys in about 4 or 5 weeks, so this year has been more of a challenge than any other season, to be honest.
Well, Chris, just to give us, perhaps for people that are more of an understanding, give us some of the stats and a typical game, and I know it varies for different players on the field, but what kind of metres are they running? What kind of force are they, is the impact on a hit? What speeds are they doing?
Yeah, well, we different teams play different game plans, so it varies up a little bit. You can find your nines, your hookers, running above 10k, making above 50 tackles. Fullbacks are probably the same. Wigan had Sam last year. We have fullback who covers a lot of distance as well. Speeds, we're looking at above 12 metres per second when you reach top speed. And then there's also, some hits are above 14 Gs. It's pretty intense what goes on there. It's car crash stuff at times. So.
And so you'd have to, I suppose, tailor a different regime for each player, I take it, when you're in the gym and when you're training sessions.
Yeah, again, Mark might comment differently. We spoke about it in the past. There's different players do different roles, so it's not a one size fits all. So everyone's got to do or seem to be doing what we deem best for them to be able to perform their best on the pitch.
How have you seen it? I mean, we were talking not so long ago to Lee Briers and to Paul Wellens, who've been in the game long enough to see it change, and perhaps it's taken a bit more seriously, perhaps than when they started their careers, certainly. How have you seen training regimes change over the years?
Well, guys like us have probably spoiled their fun a little bit because I'm sure it was a lot more fun 10 years ago. But now with sports science, technology and greater numbers in staff, it's harder for the players to find those holes and get away with stuff these days. There's a lot for a player to do when a player comes in the morning. It's not just about putting the boots on and going outside. It can be a proper 9-to-5 job in terms of monitoring stuff that we want to look at, and also the training. It's a lot of gym work, endurance work, rugby work, wrestling work, recovery, swimming. So there's a lot to fit in a day. So it's probably not as enjoyable, like I say, as it was 10 years ago.
Like Mark was saying, that there is a lot more science involved in it now, isn't there? What have you seen develop? What do you bring into the gym, into the training rooms now? Yeah,
even little things like it's not just how much weight you lift anymore. It's how fast you move the bar, the weight, what direction you move the weight in. Even down to it's not just speed work anymore. It's strengthening of the ankle complex, and it's just taking little things like that on that little step and trying to make it a bit more thorough. And just regards to what Mark says here, probably have spoiled the fun. And it's now you speak to players and they're talking about what they've had for their evening meal, whereas years ago it would have just been turn up, train and go home. Whereas now it's kind of a 24-hour athlete, so they've got to be on top of things all the time, and if they're not, it shows.
So nutrition is a big part of it. Do you have to watch their diets? They obviously have to do it themselves at home, but do you put diets, to them? You've already got me on the coconut water as soon as I walked in, but there's all that kind of stuff that comes into it, isn't there?
Yeah, we have.
There's no Wigan pies here, is there, that you get them eating?
No.
Maybe,
there might be some in the car for the coaches, but certainly not for the players. Nutrition's taken very seriously. We have a nutritionist. I know Warrington do as well, and a lot of other clubs do, and certainly with England and in the England programme, we take that very seriously. So their body composition's measured every month. So there's nowhere to hide really for every player in the squad. And like I said, 10 years ago, guys probably got away with eating what they wanted, but with the demands of the sport now, at international level and in Super League, you just can't do that.
We're beginning of November, which is generally when a lot of clubs kind of get back into training, unless we've had the World Cup or you've gone right to the end of the season. Do you kind of gradually build up the training? If we were coming in for week 1 on training in November, what task would you be setting the guys to do?
Well, if we were being progressive and going by the textbook, then we probably would do it like that. But here at Wigan, we don't do it like that. It's as Chris alluded to before, it's a car crash from day one really. So we hit them with everything from day one. They do maximal testing the first thing when they come through the door. They get their body fat taken, and that first day is probably the worst day, and it gets slightly less bad from then on in. But we hit them with everything first day. It's something we've done since 2010, since Michael Maguire was here, who's now at South Sydney, and we've carried that on so the players know what they're coming into first day back, which also helps them not get in too bad a shape in the off season. But if they come in without having done anything, then they're in for a real rough time. You
don't embarrass them, do you, in front of their teammates? I'm sure you don't do that, do you?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, if you're at the top of the scores, great. If you're at the bottom, then you know it's there for everybody to see, and we have the scores up on the board. Everything we do is measured. Chris alluded to it again before. Everything that these guys do is recorded, measured. It's put on the board because we want the guys at the top to see themselves at the top, and the guys at the bottom to feel bad about it and try and push themselves up. If you're going to win anything or be in a top side, you need that within your squad, that competitive edge throughout all your training.
And there's things like, I know a few clubs have adopted this, going to marine camps now, just to, even mental strength as well is what it can be about as well, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, there's different ways of doing that, you know, that mental sort of stuff. I know clubs who've been through the mental, you know, the marine camps to produce that. Just anything where you're really ripping in and giving it to lads, you know, as long as it's unforgiving and, you know, it's brutal, then it you know, the mental strength does evolve. And you know, like I said, even hill running, and you know, we're two clubs that use hill running a lot. That's just as it's the same.
We've been there at the same issues there as well over the years.
But yeah, even stuff like that, it's just, you know, as big a mental battle as any to get up that hill when you don't feel like you have anything left in your legs. So, you know, it's just different ways of doing it.
Is there a competitive edge between you two then?
Oh yeah.
With your training regimes and what you set the guys?
I mean, you know, we're working for two big rival clubs. We put that aside when we come into England camp. But obviously during the season there is, but we still meet up and talk about stuff, and it's quite funny on Christmas Eve this year, we both used the same hill. We did it quite early on, and then I drove past about an hour later, and these guys were all getting out of the cars and doing the same. So there's a lot of banter between the lads. I think that all the lads in Super League pretty much get on, certainly within the England squad. So, you know, they're all on Twitter and, you know, about the pre-season, what they've done and how much they hate it. So yeah. I think all conditioners in the Super League aren't very popular around this time, but now the games are starting, you know, the guys, obviously they're in it they look forward to the games. Not many of them really thrive, or some of them thrive but don't really enjoy the pre-season. They are quite tough. So
unless they're going to Florida.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or Australia.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But how is that what keeps the motivation as well? By this point now, they're ready to go, they're ready to play a game. How do you keep that motivation through pre-season and throughout the rest of the season?
Well, you vary your training. You know, you don't want guys getting stale, players and coaches. So it's about mapping out a route, hopefully all the way to a grand final. And making sure you've got variety in your training. You've got periods where you give the guys a rest because it is an unforgiving season, and other periods where you ramp training up and you're looking for some adaptations in certain areas that you're working on. So it is a roller coaster. There's times when you think you're not going to win another game, and then there's other times when you think the guys are fresh and they're unbeatable. So it's trying to get that feeling every single week, but it is very, very difficult, as has been proven over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, certainly since I've been involved in rugby league, and obviously beyond that, to challenge in all 3 major trophies is very, very difficult. To keep the plate spinning in all those areas is a real challenge as much mentally than it is physically.
And how many times a week are we talking? Are you having the guys to yourself to train with them? How long are you with them?
It depends on your turnarounds really. If you've got a Thursday game that then leads to a Sunday, 9-10 day turnaround, you have a real crack at them. And if you've got a short turnaround, you've got to pull back. Then you've got to also look at the fixture as well. If we're playing Wigan or we're playing a Leeds, we're not going to A-all doing hills and flogging the guys, because if we turn up anything less than 100% physically or mentally, we're going to get beat. So we've got to combat that and super compensate at the right times, and at the right times rip in and give it to them, just so that, like Mark says, that's the map towards the end of the season that we've got to plan out. And sometimes we've got to work hard, and sometimes we've got to pull back. So
I suppose the prize for you guys is seeing the players do well on the field and see them lift trophies at the end of it, and see how fit the guys are.
Oh, definitely. It's what you're living your dreams through other people, really. We've obviously not made it as players or as athletes, but the next best thing is doing what we're doing, which is helping somebody achieve that. And that's probably any conditioner that's working in any sport. You're training, you're looking for improvements in training, but it's about performance. It's about what you do on a Friday, Saturday or a Sunday. The scores in the gym are great, and it's good to make it competitive and show improvements, but it's about winning at the end of the day. And
you're working directly to the coach, and of course I suppose a lot of your feedback from the gym or from outside training will go to him and deciding on who's going to make the team at the end of the day. Someone like Josh Charnley, how are you working with someone like that when they're on the injury table, so to speak, and what kind of communication do you have to have with the coach?
Yeah, it's a communication with the medics, the physios and the coach, and trying to get the balance right between when he can come back training, making sure he's fit enough when he comes back, rehabs on top of. So there's a lot of markers and testing that we do to ensure that we get players to return to full fitness. We had issues last year with somebody like our captain Sean O'Loughlin, who played 2 games in the last half of the season, which were both major finals. So that was a challenge. You look at all different methods of trying to get him into those big games in the best possible shape, even when you can't necessarily run. So you're using things like watt bikes, hypoxic training, Alter G treadmills. There's a range of things out there that a lot of the Super League clubs are tapping into now. I think most of the clubs have got 1 or 2 conditioners. It's really advanced in the last 4 years since I've been involved, and there's some real top conditioners and sports scientists now in Super League, which probably wasn't the case 6, 7, 8 years ago. The NRL took the lead on a lot of these areas, but I think we're catching up in terms of the provision, or the sort of the medical and the fitness that we provide our players with. And rugby union's exactly the same. There's a lot of money spent now on backroom teams for that reason.
I was going to say, because you've worked in union, you've also worked the football side of things as well. How does that compare with how you train a rugby league player?
Oh, training a rugby league player is more brutal. We've probably got a little bit less money, as everybody knows. Than we have to beg, borrow and steal from using things like Alter G and other pieces of equipment, whereas football teams probably have 3 or 4. Rugby union teams probably have a couple of that type of equipment, and they're probably doing the NRL as well. So it's a challenge working in rugby league from in terms of getting kit and facilities, and we're blessed working at the clubs that we work at, that we do have the best, or up there with the best facilities and good budgets to work with in terms of staffing. But in terms of the difference between the sports, then we do similar to what other sports do, but it's to the nth degree. We push our guys further, harder in different areas, so it's similar but more brutal. I think that's the term.
I suppose you can keep that fun element in there as well, can't you? You can have a bit of a laugh and a joke with the guys, just to keep that, as I say, that motivation going as well. Tell us what.
Yeah, I don't do that, Chris does that.
You're the joker, right?
I'm the straight one who, when we need the guys lifting a little bit, Steve will ask me to not do the warm up and stay out of the way, and Chris takes over from there.
I don't really think I can say too much. It's what happens in Benidorm stays in Benidorm. But you're around each other all the time, and I always find that I enjoy working hard, and that enjoyment out of working hard. If you get lads buzzing while they're doing something tough, it's so much easier. There's nothing worse than turning up. Some people will turn up and think, oh, we've got fitness on a wet pitch, whereas you know, I'd just say, come on, let's rip in, let's laugh about it and joke, let's get covered in all sorts, and you know, and just try and take the positive out of it. And you find that lads respond a lot better than that. Than, you know, sometimes lads do need the shouting at and the name calling, but you know, more often than not, they respond a bit better to a bit of fun. And you know, like I say, that international level, they're all pretty much grafters anyway, and the champions, and they work hard. So it's just a matter of pushing them in the right direction.
What's the worst thing that you put them through then? What's the thing that most of them do not like doing?
What, internationally or club or both?
Both.
I think that would be our 2 test, is it?
Yeah, that's pretty horrible.
So what's that? Tell us.
That's a mask on, basically run until you can't run anymore till exhaustion, and then you do a watt bike test and a row as well. And we put the England players through that in 2011 before the last home 4 nations. They didn't enjoy that very much. I think that was mine and Chris's first involvement with a national setup. It's something that we do every day, so every year, first day back in, and then later in January. I know Chris does the same, and a lot of the top clubs, you know, do that type of very invasive testing. Very scientific, but it's from a mental point of view, it's very, very tough. Looking at a white wall and running to failure.
I'm going to put you both on the spot then as well. Who are the biggest moaners in your club? Who's the one that least likes the training? Dish the dirt.
Where do I start? Oh.
You could name a few then, I take it.
Yeah.
You had to pick one. Name and shame is what I say.
Be a tough one.
And then they can have their names on the board back in the gym.
I could pick you a moaner, but he trains hard.
Go on.
Mike Monahan. Trains hard, rips in, but his personality is he loves them all.
He lets everyone know
Whereas
about it.
his brother's, you know, complete opposite. So.
What about for Wigan?
It's a tough one now that Lee Mossop and Sam Tompkins have gone. It's a joke. No, we don't really. Maybe they don't moan to me. They moan to maybe the other staff, but we don't really have anybody like that. Like I say, they might moan to the physios and the other staff, but thankfully it doesn't tend to come my way.
You're not going to embarrass anybody yet then. We'll try and find out. But finally then, what would be your top tips? What are your rules then for getting into peak condition ahead of a Super League season?
Well, I think it's about just knowing the people you're working with. You know, for the past 3 years, I've had a very older population of players, so I've had to kind of, you know, pull off a bit earlier than you'd like to. But this year we've got a younger squad. And I think it's, you know, it's about putting the work into them when you can, and pulling off when you need to, and getting that little balance right. If you get that right, then I think you're pretty successful.
I probably had the opposite of that in the last 3 to 4 years. Quite a lot of young guys, so you can push and push and push, and as long as your recovery strategies are good and you've got good medics and understanding coach, then you can get some real quick adaptations from your training. And I think it's really important that in that early time in pre-season that you do put the guys through it, and you start with a bang, as long as you're not getting injuries, and then you're tapering into sort of warm-up games and the start of the season. And like I said before, it's a roller coaster. It's not just what you do in pre-season. You start with your good habits and your good work ethic in pre-season, but it's who can maintain that till the last day, and maintaining all your things like your well-beings and all your testing, and you know, your work ethic, you know, needs to be the same when you're training in the grand final week than it was the first day of pre-season. And that's probably my biggest tip.
It's been fascinating to get an insight from you both. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work, and we'll see the end results, of course, at the end of the season. No gym kit from me today, so no blood, sweat and tears this time. Join us again next time on Report.